If your kid just struggles talking to you, just ask them to text you or to write what's going on. So, this is something I do with my parents. I tend to struggle a lot with speaking or vocalizing about how I'm feeling. Having that option to write stuff down breaks down a barrier between me and talking to my parents. I could just send them a quick text, and it was incredible.
I'm Mackenzie Price, and welcome to Gifted Minds Beyond the Classroom. Ever wish you had a crystal ball to understand what's going on inside your kid's mind, or that they came with a user manual for how to communicate? As kids grow into their teen years, it's no secret that keeping the lines of communication open can sometimes feel like navigating a black hole. My guest is Austin Scholar, a wise, beyond her years 17-year-old who has taken social media by storm with her insightful Twitter posts and weekly newsletter aimed at helping parents support their kids in education, life skills, and emotional health. She's going to give us an inside look into the mind of a teen and ways parents can communicate. And at the end of the episode, I'll give you 3 takeaways that will shine a light on how to better connect with your kid. So check it out as we go beyond the classroom. Austin Scholar, I am so psyched to have you here. I'm a huge fan of you. I love your Austin Scholar newsletter that I get, and I love your Twitter. You give so many great insights and tips for parents like me, and so I'm really excited that you're here to share a lot of that information with our audience. Can you tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for having me. I am 17 years old and I've been on alternative education for basically my entire life. I haven't had a teacher since the 4th grade, and instead I've used adaptive apps to learn. And I've had such a remarkable journey and learned so much about education, life skills, and mental health. And I really wanted to share those learnings with other parents so that they can set their kids up for success. So, around a year ago, I started my newsletter, Austin Scholar, to provide parents with a teen's perspective on how to help their kid thrive in this changing world.
That's amazing. You're also big on Twitter. I know you had a tweet that was liked by Elon Musk and seen by millions of people around the world. So you're
Yes.
definitely taking the internet by storm with regard to that. So today we're talking about communication between parents and teenagers. And I think it's a tale kind of as old as time. I know parents are often struggling with, like, how do I get my teenager to talk with me? They don't seem to want to listen. It's hard for us to engage. And I certainly can imagine that kids have similar frustrations that come out, and you certainly have experience with this. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. So I was always a really shy kid, a huge introvert, loved to hide in my room, all that good stuff. And because of my kind of disinclination to talk to my parents about feelings, just because I'd rather hide in my room, there was a lot of miscommunication that happened between us. And it kind of all came to a head like in 8th and 9th grade. And it was just a series of arguments about things that happened in the past that I never really got to fully explain and express, just because of, I guess, my nature in general. So, yeah, I've definitely had quite a bit of experience in the communication side of interacting with my parents.
Well, I know you mentioned that, your personality, temperament sort of led to some of that, but again, I think this is true for so many kids as they grow up and go into the teen years. Communication gets to be a little bit harder. Where do you think these communication issues come from?
So many people think that it's just a lost cause to fix this communication between parents and teenagers. But when I sent out a survey to my classmates, there seemed to be a pretty clear answer. When I asked, what is something that you wish you could tell your parents? Over 70% of students responded that they just wish their parents would listen to what they're saying and try to understand how they're feeling. It seems as though listening and empathizing with your teenager can go a long way.
Well, I definitely get that listening is great and empathizing, but I know with my two girls, I try to listen all the time. The challenge is it doesn't seem like they necessarily always want to talk to me. It's like, I'm there, hey, tell me what's going on, how are you? And they're like, see ya.
Yeah, so I guess my main thing is just to think about how you're listening to them. When we're really young, we all need a lot of direction and information about just how to live and go about our daily lives. But as we get older, we start to rely more on ourselves to make decisions. That's when we begin the transition from holding our parents' hand to walking on our own. And we begin to expect that our parents will treat us like the adults we feel like. And after all, we're really only a few years away from, being full-fledged adults. But the problem is we're all kind of idiots. We just haven't lived in the world long enough to know what a good decision is and what the impacts of a bad decision are. And when our parents treat us like we need to hold their hand, we make bad decisions in turn, which causes our parents to continue to treat us like idiots and so on. And while I understand that this just comes from a place of love and protection, it leads many teenagers to just believe that their parents don't respect or value what they have to say. We want to be treated as though we're more than just stupid kids, even though sometimes we definitely are.
I love that you're willing to acknowledge that kids don't have everything figured out. Because I think parents are so hung up on that idea that, like, I need to instill knowledge into my child, I need to advise them, I need to tell them where they're going wrong. And I think it's helpful to understand, like, hey, kids don't have it all figured out, but that doesn't mean parents have to like hit them over the head with here's how it should be done. I know that you have had so much improvement with your parents in this area of communication over the last few years. I've read about it in your Austin Scholar newsletters where you've talked about a lot of things that you and your parents have done to really catapult your relationship into being just very open and fun. So I think you have some tips for how parents can help communicate with their kids.
The very first thing that my parents and I started doing to bridge that gap between us is they just started talking to me about the things that I was interested in. And so I guess my biggest tip is to take time out of your day to talk to your kid about whatever they're obsessed with at the moment. Honestly, talking to my dad about the Red Sox and Marvel movies is what allowed our bond to heal so well. And also showing interest in what your kid likes can also help build trust between the two of you, which also increases communication. Just don't belittle or tease or make fun of their interests, because even just a small offhand comment that was supposed to be kind and kind of teasing, it can create a narrative to a teenager that their parents won't listen to them and won't respect how they're feeling and what they're interested in.
I know for my girls, my Taylor Swift knowledge is top notch because that's been a huge connection point. It's a great way to almost, I feel like, pull the string of just like, oh, did you hear the latest Taylor Swift song? And suddenly my daughter, who was like not wanting to talk, is like, let me tell you everything about the lyrics and what I've analyzed and what I heard and how she wrote it and all of that. I think those are really good pieces of advice that we parents should be listening to. Is do take an interest in what they want to talk about. I love that. What else do you think?
The next thing is just talk to your kid about yourself. Don't just talk about them. Vulnerability really encourages vulnerability, and it's seriously one of the best ways to start increasing communication. So, talking to your kid about your day or telling them about a book series you loved as a kid, it can bring you back down to their level. That's definitely something that dramatically helped my mom and I's relationship as well. And if your kid just struggles talking to you, just ask them to text you or to write what's going on. So, this is something I do with my parents. I tend to struggle a lot with speaking or vocalizing about how I'm feeling. So, having that option to write stuff down breaks down a barrier between me and talking to my parents. I could just send them a quick text, and it was incredible.
I love this idea that you have about communicating can look different than maybe parents naturally think. It doesn't have to be talking, face to face, but it can be something else. So, can you give me an example of when texting has worked out better than having a face to face conversation?
Yeah, for sure. So sometimes I'm really just having kind of a rough day, but I don't want to go to my parents and talk to them about it because out of their love for me, it's going to be a big thing and it's going to be about problem solving. What can we do? And it's going to be a huge conversation that I'm just not in the mindset or the emotional state to have. And that's when I'll just send them a quick text and I'll say, hey, I'm struggling today. I'm going to go to bed early so that I can be refreshed tomorrow. And because of that, I just kind of let them know how I'm feeling and that I am struggling. And then also what I'm doing to help myself so that they don't feel like they're leaving me to just struggle on my own. I'm taking care of myself and the steps that I need to take to feel better. And it just kind of opens that line of communication and started making my parents trust me more because they realized that I would go to them or I would tell them if I really was struggling, which just bridged the gap so well.
I think that's a great idea. And I think parents should probably do that sometimes too, because we can go in like on all cylinders, ready to like, let's talk about this. And I think sometimes when we want to talk, it can feel like nagging. I've been told by my kids that sometimes it can feel like nagging. I don't know if that's true or not. But I think sometimes when I send a text instead of like, hey, it kind of gives a little bit of space, right? And I think teenagers are
Yeah.
wanting to have that space. As you mentioned, they like the idea of exploring their world and sort of starting to grow up. And what do you feel like is a great response that makes you feel like you've been heard and understood when you're doing this type of communication?
A couple weeks ago, I had a really hard night, and after I texted my parents about it, my dad just came into my room and asked if I wanted to watch a show. And instead of pressuring me to talk about it, I was just able to feel safe and supportive after I was vulnerable with them. And we just sat in the living room and watched an episode of Survivor until, I was able to go to bed. And so just telling your kid that you're here and that you don't have to talk and we can just sit and watch a show together. That can be really powerful because there's not all of this anticipation.
I think a lot of times kids might want to be able to talk to their parents or tell them about what's going on in their life, but parents are so used to jumping in with, oh, well, then here's the advice I have, or here's what we're going to do about it, or here's what I think or approve or disapprove of. And it sounds to me like you're kind of saying sometimes you just want to be able to share and then know the parents have heard, but not necessarily do anything other than just be there with you. What are some other tips you have for improving just communication and how parents and teens can better connect?
Just doing something small, but that's also really healthy for us. And so we started going on family walks together and just walking up and down for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, just doing things outside and doing things together without the pressure of having to make it a big deal is just fantastic.
The other night, I offered to paint my daughter's toenails, and we just sat outside and I painted her toenails. And it wasn't like we were talking about anything specific, but eventually she started just opening up about what was going on at school and what was happening with her friends. And it was a really enjoyable kind of time that didn't take any like real effort. It didn't cost anything. It was just like, let's hang out and do this thing together. And then the conversation kind of flows from there. I think this is great advice to help parents connect. What else do you think? Any other tips that you have to offer?
Yeah, for sure. So this last one, it's kind of manipulative, but it's really rewarding. And so basically, what you do is you give your kid like ice cream or some other sort of other treat if they do talk to you about their feelings or like how their day is. You're kind of Pavloving them so that they kind of associate talking with about their feelings with getting ice cream or getting some other treat. And so then they have positive associations with it. And so then when they come home from school, they're like, Okay, it's time to talk about my feelings so that I can get this cookie. It's kind of it's a good way to at least start that sort of communication. That's definitely something that my parents have done to me, but it's effective, so I recommend it for sure.
I think that parents of younger children can start these types of traditions where it's like, hey, let's go do something special together, you and me. And maybe that is just having a little bit of ice cream or going for a walk or doing something that is entertaining with the kid. And then over time that becomes something. My youngest daughter, she's always loved to play outside in the forest, and now at 15 years old I can still kind of say, hey, want to go take a walk in the forest? Let's go for a little hike or something. And just by sitting there and looking at leaves and things like that, she starts chatting with me about her day. So I love the Pavlovian response that you said. It is a little bit manipulative, but I like that idea of helping teenagers have positive association with their parents when they're having a conversation, as opposed to always feeling like all they're going to get is advice or a lecture or intrusive questions that make them feel like, ooh, we're doing too much on here. Austin, I am super grateful that you are here to share your insider tips on how parents and teens can better communicate. It's such valuable information for parents to have this perspective. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much. I had a great time.
Ready for today's takeaways? Here are the 3 things from my conversation with Austin Scholar that will help you communicate better with your teen. Number 1, show genuine interest in your kids' hobbies and obsessions. Take time to talk to your teenager and learn about the things they're passionate about. And don't belittle or tease them about their interests, even if they aren't your cup of tea. Number 2, be vulnerable and share about yourself. Share your own experiences, stories, and emotions with your teenager to help them see you as a person, not just a parent. And number 3, provide different communication options. Not all teenagers may feel comfortable expressing themselves verbally or in the moment. Offer alternative options such as writing, texting, or doing an activity together. Maybe even get some ice cream. And for all of your friends who can relate, tell them about Gifted Minds. Check us out on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. Let's go crush this week. If you're finding this conversation about parenting helpful, hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. Thanks.